Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm sitting on the floor today because I didn't feel like dragging out my tripod for a story time video. My ring light is all torn down because like Christmas, the tree was where my ring light usually goes, so I need to get that reset up still. But I just pulled up Ella on the monitor. You can't even really see her. There she is. I just pulled her up on the monitor so I can kind of watch her as I'm filming. So if I look down over here like this, it's because I'm looking at the monitor. I might have seen movement or something of her repositioning, but she's down for a nap right now. I did want to give you guys this story time. I found one of her plates here. So this story time is a very personal story time. I might cry. But it came to my attention earlier today that I never did a story time on how my mom passed away. Some of you guys didn't even know my mom had passed away, and it's been 4.5 years almost since that happened. So go back to April of 2015. Yeah, it's been a long time. Tim had just gotten out of jail for something he had no involvement in, but they still charged him anyways. Him and I were still dating at the time he was locked up and everything. He got out and my parents were moving to Newcastle. Me and Tim moved into this home here. I got a job over town. It's at the place called Marketplace over town. It's a little grocery store. I was working back in the deli. I was doing like all the meats and cheeses. They make pizzas, so I was doing that and subs and all deli work type stuff. So I was going to work. Flash forward to about August-ish. It was sometime in August. It was the beginning of the month. I don't know the exact dates anymore. It's been a while. But I was going to work that day, and on my way to work, instead of just going like 2 miles, not even, honestly, I think it's less than a mile from my house to the marketplace, this bridge that I would have to cross was under construction. So I had to take the long way around, which turned into like a 5 to 8 mile drive to work. So I just had turned onto this road and, I was thinking, I was like, man, I really should call my mom. Like, something in me just wanted me to call her. And I ended up not, because it was 8 o'clock in the morning. I figured she was still in bed. I was like, you know what, I'll just call her after work. Oh my gosh. This is going to be a lot harder than I thought. So I go to work. My shift was from about 8. I think my shift started at 8. So I was leaving, like, it was like quarter till that I wanted, like, that I left to go to work, and I was thinking I should call her. So my shift started at 8, and I didn't get off until 2. So I worked from 8 to 2. I was just a part-time employee. And I was like, okay, I'll call her after, I'll call her after I get home at like 3:30-ish, just so she's awake. So I know she's awake and not disturbing her. I go through my day and I just had this bad feeling, like, something felt off. I thought maybe I was getting sick. And still to this day, I don't know if it was just my intuition or, just my gut or my brain being mad that I didn't call her, because I never got to talk to her or hear her again. So at 1 o'clock, I start getting phone calls at the deli. All calls for the, not restaurant, for the store came through the deli, and if they wanted someone in grocery or something like that, I would have to put them on hold and page the person. Because we got a lot of pizza orders and subs orders and stuff like that. So all calls automatically came to our phones. So I started getting a lot of calls, and they asked to speak to the manager or, you know, the like boss that was in charge that day. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. And I put them on hold, paged the boss lady. I forget her name right now. But I was like, hey, it was Susie? No, Sherry. Her name was Sherry. I was like, hey, Sherry, you know, there's someone on the phone for you. It was over the intercom that I would page her. Be like, Sherry, you have a phone call on line 1. And I don't know if she just didn't pick up or whatever, but the person kept hanging up and calling back. So it would probably happen like 4 or 5 times. And every time I picked up the phone, this name or this voice sounded so familiar, and I couldn't place it. It was just a very busy day that day. And Sherry came back to me, and she was like, hey, that's your brother? Something's going on with your mom? I was like, hey, do you mind if, you know, I step out so I can see what's going on? And she's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Just put a sign up saying you're temporarily closed. You'll be back in 5 minutes. Like if we were going to the bathroom or something like that, we had to put that. So I put that sign up. I stepped out back and I called my brother. I was like, hey, what is going on? Because I had text messages and phone calls and voicemails saying, hey, you need to call me. This is urgent. I'm like, what is going on? And my brother said that my mom said she didn't feel right. She started shaking, and then she just fell over on the couch. She just like slumped over sideways. And that she was in the hospital. When the ambulance got there, her heart had stopped. And they got her back 2 seconds or something, like, I don't know, maybe like 30 seconds before she got to the hospital. If they hadn't gotten her heart started back up before she got to the hospital, they would have just pronounced her dead right there. But they managed to bring her back, and she never woke up. She was in a coma. It was medically induced at first. And they intubated her. And my brother told me, he's like, you need to get down here now. And this was like 11, 12 o'clock. And I was like, I'm at work until 2. Like, I didn't know what to do. I called my boss, and he said I couldn't leave because I was the only one on deli duty until my, like, reliever person came in for their shift. I was like, man, my mom is in the hospital. Like, I don't know what's going on. Nobody will really tell me anything over the phone. They didn't tell me she was intubated. They just said that her heart had stopped, but they got it going again. They didn't tell me condition of her or anything. So my boss is like, well, you know what? You'll have to stay until at least 1. And then I can come in for the hour until the next shift comes in. I was like, whatever. And then I was dealing with customers. Customers were being very snappy at me. I was an emotional mess. You know, I didn't know what was going on with her. I didn't know where she was, like, state health-wise. I knew exactly what hospital she was in and everything, but, like, I didn't know what state she was in. I didn't know if she was able to talk. I didn't know if she was already gone. Like, I didn't know anything. And the one guy I distinctly remember, he wanted a pound of like Swiss cheese, I think it was. I don't remember the exact cheese, but it ended up getting cut just a little too thick for him, and he made me recut it twice because he was not happy with it. And at that point, I was just done. My boss, Joe, came in and I was done. I was like, you know what? I'm going, I'm leaving, I'm gone. I had called Tim around 2:30 or 12:30, and I called him and I was like, hey, my mom's in the hospital. I don't know what's going on. My brother and my dad say we need to get down there. It's urgent. You know, something's not right. Well, his stepdad wouldn't let him off of work until I got home. And then, even then, he held him until 2. So I pack a bag for me and Tim, and Alan lets us, Tim's stepdad, lets us use a van because at this point, neither one of us had had a vehicle. You know, he had only been out of jail for 4 months. He was working for his stepdad. We had no money saved up. And he let us use his van. We get down there to the hospital. My dad warns me that it's not going to be a good sight, that she was on the ventilator and everything. So it was very, very rough for me. And it was even harder because that night we stayed the night at my dad's house, and Tim got a call that morning and said he had to be home with the van at 5 o'clock or else we wouldn't have a place to live because we were living here rent-free and everything. This is his stepdad's house. So we were living here rent-free. You know, Tim was working the money off and everything, but he said we had to bring the van back. So, you know, we had to go. Or he had to go, and that sucked because I didn't have him there with me. So the next day we go to the hospital, and this was the 14th, I believe. No, the 17th of August. We go to the hospital. The next day, they are going to try to bring down the medication and pull her out of the coma. However, they got it down 2 notches for about an hour, and something in her, she bit down on her tongue and would not release. She was about to bite her tongue completely off. So they had to put the induced coma medication back up to where it was so that she didn't bite her tongue off. They said that they were going to do some oh, excuse me. They said they were going to do some testing that day and that she wouldn't really be in the room a whole lot. They went and did like an echo on her heart. They did ultrasound on all of her kidneys and like other organs. They did an EKG, I want to say, or something. They did an MRI on her brain. You know, everything looked perfectly fine. They have no excuse or no reason for what happened to her a few days prior. So that day we spent in the hospital with her, and we went home. It was another night that I spent at my dad's house. Tim wasn't with me that night though because he had to come home. And then I didn't sleep well that night. I hadn't eaten all day that day. Even after my dad and brother had none of us really ate dinner. We just kind of picked. But I didn't eat anything. And we posted on her Facebook, you know, our Facebooks, said if you wanted to come say your final goodbyes, you know, this is what hospital and room number she was in, that you could come and say your goodbyes, and, you know, just in case. We didn't know how the next day was going to go. They were going to pull her ventilator out and just take her off all medications and see what happened. They didn't think she would last very long. They thought maybe 5-10 minutes afterwards. But we don't know. So we got back to the hospital that next day. We got there at like 8 o'clock. And with the special circumstances, even though it wasn't visiting hours, they were letting people in to see her. And a lot of her friends and family had came in to say goodbye. And they pulled the ventilator out. It was hard to see, knowing that like a year before, not even a full year, I was intubated. I was on the ventilator. You know, I almost didn't make it, and I got to see my mom like that, and it was so hard. So they pulled the ventilator out, and her heart rate started going down slowly. Her breath was shallowing. She never once opened her eyes or squeezed our hands. And at this point, I really had to go to the bathroom. And her room, with everyone being in there, I didn't, you know, it was a curtain that closed the bathroom. And I didn't feel comfortable, and the one nurse was like, well, you have to go down to the, you know, visitor facilities, down a floor. And I'm like, I can't go that far, and I held it. Shift came in, it was like 15 minutes later, my mom was still going. And she let me use the bathroom of a room that was cleaned. She told me it was right next door. She told me just go in there real quick and we'll just call the janitor in to re-clean it. So I didn't have to go far. And I don't know, I was very hungry, but I didn't want to eat. And I had asked the one nurse if I could get some saltine crackers or something, just to kind of help, you know, calm my stomach, because I was very upset, but I was still very hungry. And at this point, my mom had been going for an hour and a half, when they gave her 5 to 10 minutes tops after they pulled out the ventilator. So, oh, excuse me. At that point, I got back into the hospital room right by her bed, grabbed her hands, and she was gone. I swear to you, I am 90% sure she was holding on until I gave in and ate something. She wanted to make sure I was gonna be okay. Because as soon as I asked for saltine crackers, she, like 2 seconds later, she was gone. So, still to this day, we don't know what happened. We don't know why she passed away. She passed away on August 19th, 2015. So we're not sure why. Every one of her organs looked fine. You know, they looked healthy. They don't know. My dad was telling me a few nights afterwards that she was sitting on the bed. She had just put a pork roast in the oven. You know, she got up like any other normal day, started getting dinner in the oven so that it could cook all day on a low temperature and be ready and nice and tender by dinner. And she sat down on the couch, and my dad said he looked at her. She looked pale. She said she didn't feel good. Her hands came up and she started shaking like this, and then she just fell. And they called the hospital, or they called an ambulance. They got there, started CPR, brought her back 30 seconds before they got to the hospital. And we don't know. She suffered from diabetes, which was very uncontrolled because of her insurance. She suffered from the diabetic neuropathy and sciatica, so she was in constant pain. Her hands, feet, and legs felt like they were numb and like little needles being shoved in everywhere. She was in a constant state of pain, constantly rubbing at her legs, on her hands, just trying to relieve this pain. She had lost control of all of her functions. In that way, she had to wear the adult diapers or Depends. And even then, it didn't help sometimes. Sometimes she would have a big mess. But she would have about 30 seconds from the time that she felt like she had to pee until she had to be sitting on the toilet, or else she didn't have time. She couldn't hold it like we could. So it was a very rough few years for her. That had started in about 2014 at the beginning of the year. So it was about a year and a half that she had dealt with this. And we think she had just had enough, that she just was tired and she just didn't want to live with this pain anymore. And while I'm glad she is no longer in pain, it also hurts me because she never gets to see or like hold her grandbabies. So, and then to make matters worse, in April of 2016, so a few short months later, our family dog of 8 years passed away at age 12. We got him when he was 4. He passed away at 12 due to a tumor that had grown that none of the vets had ever noticed. We had no reason to, like, he'd got vet checks obviously, but like there was no reason to give him x-rays or anything like that because there was never any sign of a tumor, but this tumor had erupted and caused him to pass away. So it was a very rough few years. Sorry, my camera was gonna stop recording. So yeah, it was a pretty rough few years. We don't know what the heck happened or why she passed away. But it's been about 4.5 years. August 19th, 2015 is when she passed away. And yeah, that is the story of how my mom passed away. I was 20 at the time. I was getting ready. Well, wait. Yeah, I was getting ready to turn 20. I wasn't even quite 20 yet. Yeah, I was getting ready to turn 20 in like 2 months. That took me way longer than it should have. I kept going 2000, 2005, 2015, I kept skipping over 2010. So I was getting that I was only 15, but that was definitely wrong. So I was getting ready to turn 20 and she was getting ready to turn 44. My mother passed away at the age of 44 due to unknown reasons. So the reason why I said her diabetes was severely uncontrolled and everything because of her insurance company is because they would not cover her insulin, and none of us as a family could afford $800 for one vial that she needed 2 vials of for one of her prescriptions a month. So there's $1,600 a month for one of her prescriptions of insulin. And then the other insulin prescription was like $400 for one vial, which she would need 3 for the month. So that's another $1,200 for 1 month. And if you add that up, that's $2,800 for 1 month for 2 prescriptions. Her insurance kept fighting it, saying she didn't need her insulin. It was very hard. And then like a week before she passed away, they're like, oh yeah, we can cover it for you. She battled with the insurance company for 6 years. So, yeah, I say screw that insurance company that she had because that's not fair. But, yeah, so that's the story of how my mom passed away. I don't hope you guys enjoyed the video, but I hope you guys get an understanding of more about me. And if you guys didn't know that my mom had passed away, now you know. Like I said, it's almost been, in August, it will be 5 years since she passed away. And 5 years that I've been growing and going on without her somehow. And it will have been about 2 years since Ella's been born that my mom hasn't been here. But I try to make it seem okay because I know she's up in heaven taking care of Austin for me until I can get up there. Hopefully in the way, way far future once my babies are all grown up. But yeah,